On this show, we follow the money, and when VSiN decided to launch our own store, the smart money was on Shopify. Getting the VSiN store off the ground was easier than we expected, and Shopify's templates and AI tools had us look incredible and professional from day one. Zero coding required. Shopify checkout keeps sales moving smoothly, and returning customers can complete a purchase in one click. Built-in analytics, you always know what's selling and where your customers are coming from and how to keep the momentum going. When questions come up, and they will, Shopify's AI assistant Sidekick is there with answers so you never lose momentum. You can check out the store at vsin.com/store. And if you're ready to build your own, all you need is the idea. Shopify handles the rest. Start your free trial at shopify.com/vsin. Shopify.com/vsin. Again, that's shopify.com/vsin.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Yes, here we go. Follow the money. Paulie Howard, John Jastrzemski, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM, Channel 158. Loaded show coming up. Even though we have nothing going on in the world of sports in terms of games, it'll be heavy NFL today. Cousin Sal, I want some J.J. Craps talk discussion, what he's like at the craps table, what it's like being a Cowboy fan and a win total that he likes. Aaron Murray checking in, SEC Media Days. A lot of picks from Paul Stone coming up. Wes Reynolds on the Big Ten and some futures he likes. And Smitty on MLB. Christopher Smith, Matt's live on the Red Sox turnaround. Good call by Dustin yesterday that the win streak came to an end as they lost Game 2 of a doubleheader. Quick LeBron update we'll get to with Windhorst. When is this going to end? Day 24. So a busy show coming up. How you feeling, JJ? Good to see you, my man.
Paulie, I missed you. I'm having withdrawals after not doing a show with you for 24 hours. That felt like all day yesterday as I'm in this suit all fancy at SNY. I'm sweating out the Yankees, second half of the double dip, had Milwaukee in the afternoon slate, and I bet against the Red Sox in both games of the doubleheader. So thankfully, Dusty's play ended up being a winner. But like all day, I'm sitting there saying to myself, I miss my guy Paulie. I miss Luke. I miss Follow the Money. So I'm glad I'm ready to rock and roll with you for the next 2 days. And we're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of football to get to today. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I sent you some homework assignments, and there's some good menus that are up all over a lot of occasions, especially September specials at Will Hill and Caesars. But how about, because Cousin Sal likes Giants under, we're on Giants under. Harbaugh in some spots is the favorite to be coach of the year. You want to look in a different direction. How many guys do you think can make a case or a good ticket to be made for NFL coach of the year? Because I know you're big on the Saints, so maybe you're looking at Kellen Moore.
Well, I'm glad that you brought this up, Paulie. So obviously with coach of the year markets, you want to look at these teams that are going to go and turn it around. That's why Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson a year ago were the obvious choices because, hey, if New England pops and they make the playoffs, or in their case, they win a division, advantage Vrabel. Or, Caleb Williams is fixed. Ben Johnson, got to go and give him coach of the year. That's why it's tough to make an argument for the team that's like well-established and dominant, like McVay, for example. How are you giving McVay coach of the year with this team that is as loaded as it gets? It doesn't matter how good a job Sean McVay may do with the team, that's going to be working against them. So there's no way in the world we're getting any action on John Harbaugh because you're down on the New York Giants. I think they're at least a year away from making that sort of leap. I don't think they're a playoff team, so that's a cross-off for me. I'm going to throw 3 names at you, Paulie, for coach of the year. You tell me which one you like the best. I think these are my 3 candidates. Kellen Moore, you hit on. I'm betting the Saints to win the South. I love the way they finished up the season. Tyler Shough, to me, is a super impressive young quarterback. The defense played well in the second half of the year. I'm in on New Orleans and they're in the right division. But they got to win a boatload of games. Like, if they're a 9-8 special, Kellen Moore is not getting coach of the year. This is a crazy one. I don't know if I'm betting this team to win the division, but I think from a coach of the year standpoint, it's worth a flyer. Can I interest you in any Robert Saleh with the Tennessee Titans? I know. Wow. Paulie, I watched every game he coached with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
He did not look like the right man for the job. However, I want to preface this. It is the Jets. it is a franchise that has been as dysfunctional as it gets. He went back to San Francisco, got that defense humming despite all the injuries. They hired Dable to be the offensive coordinator, and the division stinks, right? Like, we're not huge CJ Stroud fans. Indianapolis, a lot of questions. I'm not super bullish on Jacksonville. I think they're a team poised for regression, and it's a good price on Saleh. But the other one I'm going to throw at you, because I think this team might be the best team in the AFC, and because of the fact they made a coaching change, if Buffalo goes and has, I don't know, a 14-3 type of year, is there a case to be made for Joe Brady? Those are the three names I'm looking at.
I had him circled too, and I thought the same thing. Like, how many games would they have to win? It's kind of like the same thing with Saleh. Is 10 good enough? 9 playoff team? Is that even possible? What Tennessee can do in that division? But certainly you can make a case for Brady, but they're going to have to win a ton of games. And I think your number's spot on. About 14 would get it done. Something like that. He could do it. I wrote down Shanahan 40-1, Stefanski 15-1, and then I got to put O'Connell in there too, which I don't know how it's going to go in Minnesota. Our guy Paul Charchian says it's going to be a down year because they have no depth, and if there's injuries, they're screwed. But the magic this guy can work with the quarterback position and what they did last year with the crap they had, if Murray can play at an elite level or even be above average, how many games they could win, and how he's turned into the quarterback whisperer, I had to put him on there with my list as well.
And I get that, Paulie. That makes sense. Listen, that coaching staff in Minnesota, I think, is stupendous. O'Connell takes teams to the playoffs. He's done it with a variety of different quarterbacks. Brian Flores got to work on his people skills. But as far as Brian Flores coaching up a defense, that guy is a mastermind. I mean, he did it in Miami. He's now done it with the Minnesota Vikings. Here's the problem I have with them, Paulie. It's a major problem because I am the same wonderful human being that each of the last 2 years, sir, invested in the Arizona Cardinals as overs. And I vowed after last year, and I'm sticking to my word because, as you know, I am very much a nuanced man of principle. I, Paulie Howard, am not getting in the Kyler Murray business ever again.
Okay.
I need to see it. I understand the case. He's done it with quarterbacks who are less talented. Very true. Roster does have talent. Very true. You mentioned a lack of depth. I think it's a fair question. The division is really, really good. I mean, Green Bay's in the playoffs every year. Detroit has a ton of talent. Chicago just won the division a year ago. And once again, I'm not getting in the Kyler Murray business. So if people want to go and bet the Minnesota Vikings, be my guest. I totally understand why you would go and dip your hand in that cookie jar. This esteemed VSiN panelist, Paulie, will be staying away.
Sounds good. I'm glad you brought up Campbell, too. He's 25-1 at Circa. And a lot of people are high on Detroit because of the lousy schedule they play. Maybe if everything works out for Detroit and they win the division, he would get a look. O'Connell's 20-1, Shanahan 40-1. How about maybe not necessarily a bad coaching job, but it just doesn't work out and teams with high expectations flop this year, as we see it happens a lot. Everyone likes to talk about worst to first, but we usually have a first to worst that happens. You have a couple teams that could fall on their faces.
Yeah, I do. And listen, one of them is very, very obvious. And I feel like everybody's going to bring this one up because the schedule is much harder. They have Josh Allen in the division. And I know New England on the surface improved offensively. Hey, they add A.J. Brown. They're going to add Romeo Doubs. So you're like, oh my goodness, now Drake May's got something to cook with here. But the Patriots played an absolute joke of a schedule a year ago. Yeah. That is not going to be the case as a first-place team. Then you have the whole Vrabel distraction. So, like, the Patriots profile, Paulie, as the obvious team that takes a step back, that goes from a Super Bowl to, like, they're not going to be a bad team, but do they go from a Super Bowl to, like, 8 and 9? I can definitely live in a world where that happens. The other one I'm looking at, and I know there are some people around the league who are super, super high on the Chicago Bears because they're all in on Ben Johnson. They feel like Caleb Williams unleashed and unlocked something down the stretch of last year. But I think that Bear front is atrocious. It's absolutely positively atrocious. And when you can't get after the quarterback and you can't rush the passer, I think that's incredibly problematic. And Paulie, all the wise guys will tell you this too. The guys that do this for a living that are as good as it gets. the teams that win a lot of close games the year before, there's usually a reckoning. There's usually a market correction at some particular point in time. Chicago, and that was my voodoo and my kryptonite last year, Paulie Howard. I kept betting against the Bears.
That was incredible.
It made me sick to my stomach. Yeah. I just kept doing it like a fool. I kept lining up to the window saying, this team, they're not as good as their record. They're going to get them. Finally, I think I bet them that Saturday night game against the Packers. It was nice to actually be on the right side of one for a change. But the point being is, I think there are some folks around the league that now look at Chicago and say, oh, they're going to ascend to be a Super Bowl team. I kind of look at it the other way, where I think year 2 is going to be a lot more growing pains, not only for Caleb, but for that defense. And I think they regress to being like a 500 type team. So I gave you New England and Chicago. Your thoughts?
Yeah, not bad, especially with the Patriots. I think those are strong. I wrote down KC, Seattle, Chicago, just because the historic factor that they set the record for wins when trailing in less than 2 minutes. And I could see some negativity with Green Bay, too. I was high on them last year. But remember, they were 9-3-1 and had a big lead in Denver. And they closed the season with the 5-game losing streak and how LaFleur butchered the playoff loss against those Bears that we just talked about. So coaching concerns, quarterback concerns, the contract's absurd. He makes 2 dumb plays every game. Speaking of Love, maybe there'll be some anti-Green Bay stuff there as well. But I think you're onto something there with New England, just how they got hit by the deck with the schedule, what happened.
And you didn't even mention Michael Parsons and what his deal is going to be at the beginning of the year and what that injury timetable looks like. I was super high on the Packers last year. I am not high on them this year. I'm kind of very much in between on them. Detroit's the team that should go and win that division. The schedule you hit on is an absolute joke. The only fear with the Lions, Paulie, teams that miss a window.
Yes.
I worry the Lions could have been one of those teams. Up 17 in a championship game, 1 seed, losing to Washington when they're a huge favorite. That's my only fear with the Lions.
Yeah.
Everything about them, though, profiles as a team that should go and win double-digit games.
Okay. Also, some people feel the same way about the Bills, too. No doubt about it. All the chances, and they couldn't beat Kansas City. There are 2 great props we can talk about coming up next. One in college and one in the NFL. We'll share those coming up on VSiN. Follow the Money, the Sports Betting Network, Paulie and JJ. So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you get access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Hardcore football coming up in half an hour with Paul Stone. Also, Cousin Sal on the program with his best futures in the NFL. Time for a little MLB. Christopher Smith joins us now. It's Smitty on MLB on X. Covers the Red Sox for Mass Live. He's on the Progressive guest line. He joins us right now to talk a little Boston and the incredible run they've been on as they've won 20 of their last 23. Appreciate the time, sir. But we get emails from time to time that would come in. I can't stand this team. They can't hit. I can't imagine what it was like to cover the team and be a part of it. Can you share how dark it was when this team with high expectations started 32-46?
Yeah, so like even from the first road trip, I was on the first road trip, and I mean some of the quotes that were coming out of that after the, I think they went it was like 1-6 or 1-7 on the first road trip, and on the last day, you never heard a team like just so depressed and so like like extreme. I mean, this is baseball. It's a 162 game season, and they were flabbergasted, and like their jaws dropped like when they were talking to us. And And so it was kind of there was a very morbid feel in the clubhouse throughout that first road trip. And then it just continued on throughout the year, right? Like just in the way of not being able to put the ball in play with runners in scoring position, not scoring at all. They fire their manager. They fire several other coaches. And, and you looked at it on June 24th, they blew a 3-run lead to the Colorado Rockies, who stink, in Colorado. To drop to 14 games under 500. And they're coming home to play the Yankees, who have, were first place. Well, I don't know if they were first place or the Rays were at the time, or if they tied, whatever. But I was saying to people, I was like, this could get really ugly. I was like, if you're talking about Craig Breslow's job security, like when we saw Chaim Bloom get fired, it was during a September Yankee series in 2023. And so the ownership doesn't like to be embarrassed, and especially against the Yankees. And so if therefore, if this snowballs and they lose 3 or 4 or 4 or 4 to the Yankees, you could maybe see a firing here. And instead, they won 4-4, and they've been red hot since. It's pretty remarkable. It's hard to put
it is
in
remarkable,
because,
Chris.
I covered I covered the 2018 team, and it was just and it was just it was the best Red Sox team in history. I mean, they won 108 regular season games. That's the most in franchise history, and it just seemed like every day they were winning. And they never went on a streak of more than 10. So to go on a streak of 15 and tie the franchise record for a team that was 14 games back, just not that long ago, it's pretty crazy.
So my question is, Chris, because I'm a huge Alex Cora fan. I thought he was one of the few difference-making managers in the sport. Felt like the Red Sox overachieved the last few years. He got the most out of them. They make the managerial change, and I'm like, oh, boy, you getting rid of this guy? How are you going to look differently? How are you going to actually go and play better? And to their credit, they have. They've pitched really well. But their interim manager, Chad Tracy, they get him from the minor leagues. What has he provided this team? What has he brought to the table that maybe you didn't know about him when he got the gig?
I always heard great. I mean, I had met him a few times when I went to Worcester to get some stories on prospect. Everybody raved about them down there. They were like from the baseball or from the media relations department there to the even reporters covering the team. They were really happy he got the job, but they were sad to see him go because he was such a pleasure to be with every day and to cover. And he's very genuine. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. And I think he works well with young guys. And right now, that's been an important thing, right? Like they always had the pitching, but right now they've had to integrate younger guys, less experienced guys with guys on the IL like Trevor Story and other guys like that. Roman Anthony has been out for a long time. And so they have had to take guys with less experience, and those guys have done a good job just putting the ball in play, moving runners over. They're bunting more. I think that it not only has to do with Chad Tracy, but it has to do with the personnel he has right now. Now, how long can that go? They need to supplement right now. They need to, get a better shortstop than Chang. But look at, they're like 12-1 or 12-2 when he's been the shortstop and he's playing extremely good defense. So there's a lot of guys that are helping out in that way and getting the ball in play, and like a Siegler guy, not much experience, but so I think he does well with these type of players. Alex was always a veteran guy, right? Like that 2018 team was very veteran. You look at the 2021 team, they had a lot of, experienced guys, even from Kike Hernandez. And so he does better with those teams. I thought when I was on the radio locally after they fired Cora, I said, maybe this will shift because, Chad, maybe he's just better with these maybe he'll be better with these young guys. And it didn't look good for a while, but right now it does. And, he's got the right mix and, but now they have to supplement it at the deadline.
Christopher Smith, our guest on the Progressive Guest Line, covers the Red Sox for Mass Live. He's got a great article up there. He tweeted out the turnaround and how it started when they were 32-46. He's at Smitty on MLB on X. Oh, so you led me into it. Do they make moves at the deadline, and can this team make a deep postseason run in what feels like a wide-open American League?
Yeah, I think they need to get a hitter, right? Like, you look at it and everybody says right-handed hitter is important. However, they've done very well from the right side against lefties this year. So I would look at it as just get the best hitter who's a good defender, too, because their pitching really is the big thing, right? Like, it's been good all year. And, finally, now that the bats have come around, now the pitching, this pitching and defense thing works. And so, I look at it as if I was the Red Sox, I would look bat first, a best bat who can also provide defense. Trevor Story, you have no idea really when he's going to come back. You have no idea when Marcelo Meyer's coming back. I would look for a shortstop. And, whether that's Zach Nato from the Angels or somebody, C.J. Abrams. I know C.J. Abrams from the Nationals isn't exactly the best defender. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to get the defense up the middle. As I just said, Chang's providing great defense, and they're, winning every game with them there. And so I think the combination is important, but you need to get, another bat in the lineup. And if he can, hit too, that's a great thing. But, if he can play defense, too, that's a great thing. I would look to shortstop and left field because, Jaron Duran has not produced this year. You have no idea if Roman Anthony is going to come back to play left field. So maybe get an outfielder or shortstop, look in that area.
And can they make a deep run? Do you think that's possible?
The way that I always thought like this was a team set up for the postseason, but that was before Crochet went down too, right? Like, if you're a pitching and defense team, pitching and defense wins in the postseason. We saw, the 2013 Red Sox winning so many games. Like, that there were games that they won, like the Verlander, he was on the mound in that game. I don't know, but it was Verlander against somebody, and they won that game 2-1. All they needed to do was hit a solo home run and win that game on the road in Game 3 of the ALCS. And so I think that you obviously have to score some runs with those, but pitching is so important. And so I think they have the pitching staff to make a deep run. However, it would be way easier if they had Crochet too. Yeah. But the guys like Suarez and Gray are providing so much that I think they could, they would be good in any series, 3, 5, or 7 game series.
It's a great article you have, my man. Thanks for a few minutes and enjoy the rest of the season. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Christopher Smith, Smitty on MLB, covers the Red Sox incredible 20-3 run. They finally lose as the winning streak came to an end. But what a job and great story that's up there that he tweeted, and what a turnaround to be 32-46. Fan base livid, furious, sell the team, all of it, and now a 20-3 run, JJ.
Two guys to watch here if they're going to go and make a serious October run. Can they get Roman Anthony's bat back in the lineup? Think about what a game changer he was a year ago. He's barely played. And, Paulie, you remember that guy Crochet? Pitched game 1, lights out, Yankee Stadium just last October. Imagine what that rotation looks like if they can get Garrett Crochet back to peak. So we can talk deadline. Those are two guys who are coming back from injury. They're almost like making trades if you can go and get them back.
Yeah. Twins just beat the Guardians 3-1 in 12, only 9 hits in the game, and Toronto still leads Tampa 2-1 in the 6th. Win-lose coming up next. It happened again in the WNBA. We'll share that, plus a LeBron update. Brian Windhorst on ESPN Cleveland Radio earlier today. He will surprise you with what he's told Tony Rizzo straight ahead on Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM, Channel 158, live downtown Circa.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Great hour ahead. Double shot with Paul Stone. We'll talk college football. Cousin Sal with some futures he likes in the NFL. And it's difficult being a Cowboy fan, but great to talk to Cousin Sal coming up. And JJ at the dice table. Can't wait to hear some of those stories. Paul Stone joins us now. He's on the Progressive Guest Line at Paul Stone Sports on X, and he's on every Thursday to preview conferences in college football, SEC and Mountain West today. A ton of picks. Before we get to the SEC, sir, I was singing your praises earlier. This is a great prop bet you found at BetMGM. Tell us what you found with a head-to-head three-way, Notre Dame and Miami, please.
Yeah, first of all, sometimes the numbers, looking, Paulie, at some of the more traditional numbers like regular season wins, I mean, they're at 11.5. I think they're going to lose a game, but the under, you got to play. The best I've seen is minus 200. Some stores north of minus 200 to play the under 11.5. Don't want to do that. I think Notre Dame's going to make the playoff, but you've seen the prices. You got to lay $7, $8. Minus 700 or minus 800 for the Irish to make the playoffs. So didn't like that either. So started kind of shopping around and found this at BetMGM a few days ago. And it's a three-way market, as you mentioned, Notre Dame and Miami. And the prop is which school will win more regular season games. So it's a three-way market. You've got Notre Dame at minus 118. Mm-hmm. You've got Miami at plus 220. And you've got a tie at plus 340. And important to note here that if they both end up with one loss or two losses or whatever the case might be, then the tie is the winning side, if you will, and you lose your bet if you took Notre Dame or Miami, Florida. But what I kind of base this on is the fact that Notre Dame, of course, is playing Miami, Florida on November 7th, which is a college football fans' delight. We have so many great games on that day, November 7th. Notre Dame currently favored by 7 points at DraftKings. So I think Notre Dame's going to win that game outright. You look at the remainder of their schedule, their schedules are really comparable. Notre Dame 66th, toughest according to Phil Steele. Miami's 62nd. So I think outside of that game, their other 11 games, they're going to have the same record in those games, whether it be one loss, no losses, two, whatever the case might be. So I think Notre Dame minus 118 to have more wins in the regular season than Miami is a good play. So Notre Dame minus 118 there at BetMGM.
Great breakdown. I reached out to two people. They said that should be at least $2 what they made it. That's a fantastic find. Okay, SEC. Who wins it? State your case. What happens at the top?
Yeah, in Kirby Smart's first season there in Athens, Paulie, way back in 2016, the Georgia Bulldogs went 8-5. But in the 9 seasons since, Georgia has finished in the top 7 in the final AP final season poll all 9 years. So they've been in the final AP poll top 7 each of the last 9 years. They are the class of the Southeastern Conference and obviously one of the stronger programs in all of college football. They've appeared in 3 of the last 4 SEC championship games. The 3 years that they've been in the championship game, they have won it. So, again, they are ruling the SEC right now. Entering 2026, they do have a couple of questions, namely at the receiver position. Their top 2 guys, Zachariah Branch and Colby Young, both off to the NFL. But this is a talented team. To me, it starts with their gutsy, workmanlike, blue-collar quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, an experienced guy who's been in the wars, got one of the best running back rooms in all of college football, led by Nate Frazier. And then they've got a defense that just year in and year out under Kirby Smart is going to rank high in the key defensive statistical categories, typically going to give up an average of less than 20 points a game. So very strong defensively. So, a lot of people are going to, before I close here, a lot of people are going to pick Texas. They're kind of the trendy pick, kind of the pick du jour, if you will. But the Longhorns, as we know, are 0-3 against Georgia their first 2 years in the SEC. They can't run the ball against Georgia. Georgia has given up 31 yards or fewer against Texas in each of those 3 games. So Texas has never rushed in these last 2 years for more than 31 yards a game against Georgia, averaging only 1.15 yards per carry. At plus 320, it's not a huge price. It's not going to get you from the outhouse to the penthouse. Mm-hmm. Might get you one of them tiny houses. Might get you from an efficiency to a 1-bedroom. But still, we can't give away, you got to like the price. I think it's a good price. Georgia plus 320 available at Caesar William Hill to win the SEC title.
Excellent.
Okay, Paul, you got Georgia and Texas 1-2 in the SEC. No surprise there. Give me the team, though, that's overvalued in this league. Like you see A&M, they're plus 850 to win it. Bama's plus 850 to win it. Kiffin, you're wearing the LSU hat. They're 9-1 to win it. Then you got Ole Miss and Chambliss, new head coach, 11-1. Who is the team in the SEC that is mispriced because they're being overvalued? Is there one that stands out?
There might be a couple, and I think the pricing is pretty good here, John. But I would look at Texas A&M. They are a team that made the playoff last year. Obviously, lost at home there to Miami. The Hurricanes go on to the national championship game where they're defeated by Indiana. But looking at this A&M team, they lose their defensive line, which is really the impetus of that defense. They lose 3 guys up front, and not just any 3 guys. 3 guys who were drafted in the first 81 selections of this past April's NFL draft. So 3 guys picked in the first 3 rounds. Defense is not going to be as good. And I think the jury's still out on Marcel Reed. When it got to be kind of crunch time late in the year, in 4 of his last 5 games last year against FBS opponents, he threw 2 interceptions in 4 of his last 5 against FBS teams. So he's got a little bit of a turnover issue there. And I just think Alabama, I think they're just gradually losing a little traction post Nick Saban in each of his first 2 seasons. Kalen DeBoer has lost 2 games, 8-4, or 8-4, 9-4, I believe, but lost 4 in each of the last 2. Couldn't run the ball last year, only 3.5 yards per carry. I think they'll be better in that department this year with true freshman Xavier Crowell, but still, it's a question mark. I just think it's a team that's going to perhaps struggle a little bit this year. Need to get better in the receiving position. Ryan Coleman Williams, who's a huge blue chip recruit and certainly one of the better receivers in the nation. He had 14 drops last year, one of the national leaders. You can't do that. So I just think Alabama might be slightly overpriced in the SEC market.
Okay. Paul Stone, our guest, talking SEC. It's on the Progressive Guest Line on every Thursday. How about your favorite win total in the SEC?
It's going to be Arkansas. I often look at unders, and I'm going to do that again here. The Arkansas Razorbacks, they're off a 2-10 season. Didn't win a single game last year in the SEC. Got a new first-year head coach in Ryan Silverfield. He was not the Razorbacks' first choice. They've got a roster. If you look at it, it is devoid of front line and even mid-level in some cases SEC talent. They lose their quarterback, Taylon Green. His eligibility has been expired. And then the top player in their program also gone. That being, in my opinion, their running back, Mike Washington, guy who rushed for 1,070 yards last year, 6.4 yards per carry, just a bull of a running back drafted in the 4th round by the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to win their opener against FCS North Alabama. They are favored in week 4 over Tulsa. But other than those 2 games, they're going to be an underdog in the remaining 10 games, likely a double-digit underdog in 8 of those. I just think this is probably a 3-win team at best. I think 4 and 8 would be great, and that would still get us under the total. So I like Arkansas. It is heavily juiced to the under, but Arkansas under 4.5 regular season wins, minus 166 there at DraftKings.
How about a game of the year? 2 minutes left till we break.
Yeah, I'm looking at a big game there in Austin on October 24th when Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss come to the state capital of Texas to play Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns. Of course, Chambliss and Manning, 2 of the favorites in the Heisman Trophy voting. So there'll be a lot of eyes on this game, Paulie. This game opened at DraftKings on the Game of the Year market about a month ago, 45 days ago. Opened Texas minus 9.5. Ole Miss is taking a little money down to 8.5, but 9's kind of a dead number, so I still like Ole Miss. Looking at Ole Miss's team, it has to start with Trinidad Chambliss, and I've asked this question on a lot of appearances this summer, and I might be missing a game, but was there a better individual single-game performance than what Trinidad Chambliss had last year in that quarterfinal victory, 39-34, over not just any team, but over the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, that was such a performance.
Paul, I'm dying to know, though. It was so great. You bet Chambliss to win a Heisman Trophy? Because I love him. I can't get enough.
Yeah, I don't get heavily involved in that market, but I did bet a little bit on Chambliss. I believe it 11-1 a couple of months ago. So that's the only bet I have on the Heisman Trophy. I think he's a guy who could win it. Is going to start with the game against Louisville on Sunday night. That's going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. Going to play LSU in week 3. Going to have this game against Texas. So he's going to have a lot of opportunities to showcase his skills. But in that game, talking about Chambliss against Georgia, throws for 362 yards. He's under duress the whole game. I mean, he's just pulling off these Houdini acts. And I think against Texas, when you've got edge rusher Colin Simmons coming from the edge, you got to have a quarterback, ideally, who can split the rush and who can go upfield. And Chambliss can do that. He can run the ball. So I think he's going to have some gainers against the Longhorns. The Rebels covered twice last year, or won outright twice last year as the betting underdog, one at Oklahoma, defeated Georgia again in that aforementioned game. I think this is going to be a tight game. I think Ole Miss rather is going to take the Longhorns, to the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be an SEC throwdown. Anything above 7, I think, is good. I like Ole Miss plus 8.5 over the Texas Longhorns.
All right, segment 1. Great job, SEC. Mountain West up next. Paul will give out a 6-1 shot coming up next on Follow the Money. On this show, we follow the money, and when VSiN decided to launch our own store, the smart money was on Shopify. Getting the VSiN store off the ground was easier than we expected, and Shopify's templates and AI tools had us look incredible and professional from day one. Zero coding required. Shopify checkout keeps sales moving smoothly, and returning customers can complete a purchase in one click. Built-in analytics, you always know what's selling and where your customers are coming from and how to keep the momentum going. When questions come up, and they will, Shopify's AI assistant Sidekick is there with answers so you never lose momentum. You can check out the store at vsin.com/store. And if you're ready to build your own, all you need is the idea. Shopify handles the rest. Start your free trial at shopify.com/vsin. Shopify.com/vsin. Again, that's shopify.com/vsin.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Light card in MLB. Toronto beat Tampa and avoided the sweep 3-1. Twins beat Cleveland 3-1 and 12. Only 9 hits in the game. Atlanta beat San Diego 6-5. And Arizona on top of St. Louis 3-2 in the bottom of the 4th. Only 1 game left on the card. And hazard pay again with Will Hill and DK coming up. All they have is KC and Detroit tonight with VSiN Primetime. Wes Reynolds joins us now. Talk a little college football and Big Ten. He's on the Progressive guest line. Read him every week at vsin.com with the great picks and also with the golf analysis. Appreciate the time, my friend. How are you?
Good to be with you guys. How are you?
All right, excellent. So earlier we talked with Paul Stone and his top 5, Buckeyes, Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Texas. What say you? Does that sound about right and what you agree with at the top of college football?
It probably is, but there's a notable name missing, I think, from that top 5, and that would be the defending national champions, my alma mater, the Indiana Hoosiers. But I think anywhere probably 5 to 7 preseason overall in a top 5 would be fair for Indiana because there are some question marks. It's not every year you lose a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, but I've seen a lot of rounds making the rounds, I guess, guys, that, Indiana, they're a one-hit wonder here, that they're not going to be able to sustain this and they lost too much. I think Indiana's here to stay.
Yes.
Would I bet them over 10.5 season wins? Probably not, because I think that's priced right at the number. Of course, they got to face Ohio State in that rematch. That will be in Bloomington, by the way, in October. But you never really know. Are they going to win every close game like they did last year? Are they like they did against Oregon, like they did at Iowa, like they did at Penn State, like they did in the national championship game in Miami? Are they going to be able to do that, or is there going to be one that goes against them? And then plus, they last 2 years, if you combine the turnover margin for this team, plus 37. it's hard to maintain that. I don't care who you are or what you bring in the portal. But that being said, I think that they're one of the playoff teams in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State and Oregon, who you just mentioned, Paul. And then I think the question is who's going to be that fourth team, because I think it's going to shake out nationally just like it did last year, guys, where you get 4 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams, Big 12 champ, ACC champ, Notre Dame, and then who's the G6 team. So I think it's going to shake out the exact same way. So that's the intrigue in the Big Ten, who's going to be likely that fourth team.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. But I think the big thing here is, though, you have the best coach going, and that's the most important thing. So remember what Mendoza was like at Cal, and then what he turned into at Indiana. I like what I saw when I watched Hoover play. And now he gets to work with Cignetti, and then the big jump he can take as well. So that's why I'm with you that what Cignetti can do with Hoover coming in and the fact that maybe there isn't a big drop-off.
And Hoover is going to be a different type of quarterback because he's not necessarily the athlete that Fernando was, and he's not as big. He's probably generously listed at 6'2". And if you've seen Fernando up, like, he's a big guy. He's every bit of 6'5" and a strong guy. Hoover can fling the football. He might not be the runner Fernando is, but I like what they added, and they're going to have, I think, even a better running game because if you look at the talent, they're probably better at the skill positions, and they return arguably the best offensive line in the Big Ten and perhaps even in college football with essentially 5 starters back when you add in Brunner from Wisconsin. So they're going to be able to run the football, and I think that that's going to help Hoover kind of rectify that turnover issue where he has, I believe, like 35 and 38 career games at TCU. So I think that's going to get rectified very quickly by Curt Cignetti.
So you mentioned it earlier then. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Who would that fourth playoff team be?
There are, I think, 3 candidates, Paul. Of course, Michigan, with Kyle Whittingham coming in, kind of trying to rebuild what was a decayed culture, shall we say, over the last couple of years. And that's what he likes to do, run the football and be tough at the line of scrimmage. But the 2, I think, probably are the best candidates, even though they don't have as short odds as Michigan, are either USC or Penn State. And I'm going to go with Penn State because I think last year they had a lot of hype. Look, I thought they were going to be very good. I thought for certain they were going to be a playoff team, and that just fell apart. And then Pat Kraft fired James Franklin midseason. So they get Matt Campbell, who finally gets that big job. We've been waiting for Matt Campbell, like, okay, when's he going to go take that big job and leave Ames? And he finally does at Penn State. He brings in like almost 30 guys from his team at Iowa State. And I know the Big 12, it's a step up to Big 10 competition, but he's kind of doing a little bit of the Cignetti, what he did, where he brought in a lot of his guys from James Madison, and Campbell's doing the same thing at Iowa State. But Penn State gets a break in the schedule this year. They don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Indiana. They don't have to play Oregon. Still got to go to Michigan, but the schedule, I think, really sets up for Penn State, much like it did with Indiana last year, not having to play Ohio State until the Big 10 championship game in Indianapolis. So Penn State with Rocco Beck, Matt Campbell, I think they're going to exceed expectations, whereas they fell way under expectations last year.
I like the sound of that. Now, can we get you on board, Wes, to bet the over? Paulie and I both like it. I know you got to lay heavy juice. It's minus 160 at 8.5.
Yeah.
This is a 9+ win team?
I think so, John. I look at them and just the fact that there is roster continuity. Roster continuity, I think, cannot be underrated. And that very much helped Indiana, despite the fact that these were, G5, now G6 players, and some of them were FCS players, and they weren't exactly from the Power 4 programs. But Penn State brings in a lot of talent. They bring in D'Anton Lynn. They plucked him out of USC to be the defensive coordinator. And I just look at how they start. And sometimes you get off to a good start and that carries over into a good finish. You open with Marshall, you do go to Temple, is a road game at the Link, Buffalo, and then Wisconsin, and then you go to Northwestern before USC comes to town in October. So you've got a real opportunity, I think, to start off well and also to end well, because if you look at late November before they go have Thanksgiving, you get Minnesota at home, you get Rutgers at home, and you go to Maryland. So we'll see how they'll be. They were 4-8 each of the last 2 seasons. So this schedule, I think, just really sets up nicely for Campbell and the Nittany Lions.
What are your two or three favorite win total bets?
Penn State would probably be one of them going over that win total. And Another one that I'm going to look at, and you got to lay some juice on this at 3.5. I know there's some 4.5s out there, is Michigan State. And Michigan State turns to days of Big Ten pass with Pat Fitzgerald now taking the reins up there in East Lansing. They finally got their quarterback. I think I'm going to butcher his name. First name is Alessio. He was the backdoor man last year, by the way. If you watched any of the Bad Beats highlights, where he got Michigan State in the backdoor and mop up time, I think 3 separate occasions against Nebraska, against Indiana, and against Michigan. Well, now he is QB1. They need a little bit of help, I think, on the offensive line and who's going to play receiver for this team. But I'm going to trust Fitzgerald and that culture. He's been out of coaching, obviously, for 3 years. They settled the lawsuit, so Michigan State gives him the hire. He's going to make them tougher. Like, they're going to, I think, at least be on the same game plan as Mark D'Antonio certainly was, where they're going to be tough and physical at the line of scrimmage. The talent isn't quite there yet, but I think Michigan State is one of those teams that's going to be in a lot of these games because of that quarterback and the fact that they've been looking for one basically since Peyton Thorne like 4 years ago. So I think they finally found one. Michigan State, I think, is going to be one of those teams that somehow might even get close to bowl eligibility. And you're like, where'd they come from? They were supposed to be dead last.
Wes, final one for me. Who is the team in this conference that's set up to flop?
That's a very interesting question, JJ. I think, I wonder about Illinois this year, and they had a lot of those expectations last year. It's like they're going to be this year's Indiana. Well, what happened when they played Indiana? They got boat raced 63-10 on national television. And now you lose Luke Altmaier, who was a 3-year starter for those guys. You bring in Caton Hauser, who was at East Carolina last year, was originally at Michigan State and couldn't beat out Noah Kim for that job a couple years ago. So I think that there's at least a little bit of drop off there. And a lot of their transfers they're bringing in, guys, were not Power 4 guys. They were a lot of lower major guys. Now, sometimes those guys work out. See Indiana with Kurt Cignetti, with James Madison, but I'm not as high on the talent this year. I think that they're going to struggle, and they've got a tough schedule. I think they'll still get bowl eligible, but I would be under on them. I think a lot of people see them as a dark horse. They're not for me this season.
Good thoughts, Wes. Thanks for a few minutes, and we're looking forward to your picks in the VSiN College Football Betting Guide. Thanks a lot.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
Take care. I'm shocked what happened at Wisconsin as well. I thought Fickell would do a good job there, and not to mention that they brought him back for a 4th year. And Phil Steele has them 12th. Predicted finish 12th after going, 7-5-4 wins in his first 3 years. I'm stunned what's happened in the fall.
It's been a bad hire.
Oh,
no
I
sugarcoating it, Paulie. Bad hire.
No doubt about it. What we're betting, recap what happened last night with In Pocket coming up on Follow the Money, VSiN, Sirius XM, Channel 158, Downtown Circa.